Guys, so I did my eyebrows off camera, but I start with the P. Louise base and I use my finger to apply that on my eyelid, and I kind of just smooth it out with my finger, and then I'll take a brush and further smooth that out before applying the eyeshadow. And then I'll take the MAC uninterrupted and I'll put that in the crease of my eye, and that'll be a nice like transition shade. And I start with the Huda Beauty palette, and I use those two colors, and I like to start on the outer ends of my eye with a dark color. So this is how I normally always do my eyeshadow. I definitely put my fingers all in that palette when I flipped it around. I'll use those two colors and kind of add a little bit more color to the outer ends of my eye. And I pack on more color, trying to really get it to show up. I don't always get the best color payoff with this palette. And I pack on more color or eyeshadow. And so I go back in with the P. Louise base to kind of do somewhat of a cut crease, but as you can see, it will kind of blend out once I finish, but hopefully get more of this color, these two colors, to pay off even more. And I typically like to pat my eyeshadow on, especially when there's not much payoff with the color. And then as you can see, I kind of like blend out that transition shade again, and so it kind of no longer a cut crease, at least not a sharp one. And then I'll go in with a little shimmer, and I typically add my shimmer right where the dark and light color meet. It's kind of a nice way to kind of blend the two together. Ooh, my favorite, lashes. So I apply my glue directly to my eyelid. It seems to be the fastest for me. And I'm going to do that. One side I'll do that with my fingers. And then the other side I will do that with a little eyelash tool. That's typically not something that I use. It kind of gets awkward, especially since I'm right-handed. And as you can see, even just trying to put the glue on the other side, it just feels really awkward. So even just trying to use the instrument on that side is just, I don't know. I just prefer my fingers. I can get a closer feel with the lashes, pinching them together with my own lashes. I just like it better. But I just wanted to show that you could do either or with it. Yep, don't like using this. And there, I just use my fingers. It's just easier. And on to the fun stuff. Fenty foundation. So it's pretty runny, but I use a brush and I kind of use that on my face first to kind of get an even coverage as much as possible. And it tends to dry pretty quickly. So then I go in with my sponge and kind of further smooth that out and really, really get that in there. And then since I didn't color correct, I will go in with another pump of it and add to some of the areas that I typically would have color corrected, but I don't always color correct. I don't feel like it. I just add a little bit more foundation. And it's typically only for special occasions that I really will color correct. I use their concealer, of course. I use 390. It seemed like the perfect color. I was going to do 385, but it would have just been too light and more work, and I just didn't feel like it. I start with applying it directly to my face, then I use a brush. And that seems to help further get more of the product spread across my face. And once I finish with that brush, of course, I move on to a sponge and use a sponge to further just really press that in, especially with the crease underneath my eye. Like, I really want to get that in there. So I make sure I'm really patting that in. And I use their setting powder, Honey, for underneath my eyes. So now I set my under eye concealer with this using a sponge. It's just the easiest. And I don't really bake my concealer either. I just kind of apply it and then just pat it in. I don't always have the time to just let it sit on my face and then move on and then come back to it, because most likely I will have forgot that I did not really blend that in too well, and I will have walked out and it would have looked a mess. So then I add the MAC Skin Finish in dark, and I use this to set the rest of my face. And then I also kind of go over the areas where I did put the setting powder, just so that it kind of blends in, so it's not obvious exactly where I put the lighter setting powder. Key is blending, 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 blending. And of course, there's so much fallout from these things. Into the fonts, the new one, the cream bronzer. I use my finger. I don't know. I've never used cream bronzer before, so I was like, let me just use my finger. It seems safer. So I just use that, and it's kind of easier to put exactly where I want it, kind of. Keyword, kind of. So then I take a brush, and I blend that. And I always brush upward. It seems to be the most natural way of making your bronzer look. I use the Anastasia powder bronzer in Mahogany. Almost finished it. And pinch my brush, and I kind of just set where I put the cream bronzer. And then I go use that and kind of go over the rest of my face to kind of blend it in a little bit. And the cream blush. Now, I don't even normally wear blush, but I tried. It's Rihanna's line, so why not? So I use my finger to apply it. And as you can see, it's not too much, but it's just enough. And then it's buildable too, so I just keep adding more and more. And after a while, I started to notice, okay, I have a matte face and this is shiny, but it is what it is. I use a Killawatt and Moscow Mule, and I just kind of add a little highlight to go along with it. Not too much showing, but just enough. I'm like I said, I'm very subtle typically with my makeup. So I like to do just enough. And onto the lips, I use Huda Beauty lipstick. I love a nude lipstick. Like, those are my favorite. And I always just use a simple brown lip liner. That one's by NYX. I believe it's called Chocolate. Not too sure. And I start in the center. And I don't really have much top lip, so that one is a little bit more complicated. And then to top it off, I just added the Fenty gloss in Fussy. And then I add a little bit more of that on there. And that's it. Thanks, guys.